In this video, we discuss about another conditional statement, nested if else statement. Nested if else statement ensures that certain statements are executed based on conditions, based on a given condition. Nested means we place one if else statement in another if else statement in any order. So if one if else statement is placed in another, that will be called as nested if else statement. Now in this example we see there will be different syntaxes of nested if else statement. We can write nested if else in different ways. I will discuss a few of them. So here is the first one. Now observe here. Now all these three syntaxes are same. Now this one is same with I have copied the same syntax in duplicates here, so that we can easily understand the concept. Both of them are same. Both of them are having same syntax. All the three are equal here. Now we will understand. Now observe here. Now what is the syntax here? This is one syntax of nested if else statement. If condition 1, then now observe here there is a outer if else statement. In the if block there is again another if else statement. This one is the inner if else statement, inner if else statement, and outer one is the outer if else statement, and this one is the outer if else statement. That means one if else statement is placed in another if else statement. Such type of concept is called as nested if else statement. Now we see how this particular nested if else statement is executed. Initially the control checks condition 1. If the condition 1 is true, then we enter into if block. Then condition 2 is checked. If the condition 2 is also true, that means condition 1 is true and condition 2 is also true, then the statements in this particular if block is executed, and then control comes to the immediate statement after the nested if else statement. This is the first scenario. And we see the second scenario. If the first condition is true, then again control enters into if block. Now if the second condition is false, that means the control enters into else block. For this if block, the control enters into else block. Then these particular statements are executed and the control enters into the immediate statement after nested if else statement. This is the second scenario. Now we come to the third scenario. Now we assume that initially the condition is false. That means first condition is failed. Then the control enters into else block. Then the entire statements in else block are executed, and then the control comes to execute the remaining statements after nested if else statement. In this scenario, the program control executes statements in this particular syntax. Now we go for another syntax of nested if else statement. This is another syntax. All the three are same. I have copied them in duplicates so that we can understand easily the concept. Here, if the condition is true, then statements. In the else part, we have placed another if else condition. In the previous syntax, we have placed if else in if block. In this particular case, we have placed if else in the else block. This is another scenario. Now we see how this particular nested if else statement is executed. Here also, if the condition is true, then control enters into if block. All the statements in if block are executed, and then control comes to execute the remaining statements after if else statement. That means in outer if else, if block is satisfied, then no else block is executed. Now coming to the second scenario, if the condition is false, that means outer if condition is false, then control enters into outer else block, then it enters into else block, and here again there is another if else condition. Here condition is checked. If the condition is true, then the statements in the inner if block are executed, then control comes out of the nested if else statement. Now third scenario, if the initial condition is false, then control comes to else block, and here also if the condition 2 is false, then the control enters into inner else block. Now all the statements in inner else block are executed and the control comes out of the nested if else statement and it will execute the remaining statements. In this scenario, in this fashion, the statements are executed in this particular nested if else syntax. Now we see another syntax here. Now I have taken 4 statements. All of them are same. All these 3 syntax. All these 4 syntaxes are same. Now in this syntax, we have placed if else statement both in if block as well as in else block. In the first case, we have placed if else in the if block only. In the second example, we have placed if else statements in the else block, and in this example, we have placed if else in both if block as well as else block. Now we see how these are executed. Here in the first scenario, if the condition 1 is true, then control enters into if block. Again there is a condition. If this particular condition is also true, then statements in this particular if block is executed. Then control comes out of the nested if else. Coming to the second scenario, if the condition 1 is true, then control enters into if block. In the inner if block, if the condition is false, then else control enters into else block. Then all the statements in else block are executed and the control comes out of the nested if else statement and the remaining statements after nested if else are executed. Coming to the third scenario, now we assume that condition 1 is false. If the condition 1 is false, then the control will not enter into if block. That means the control enters into outer else block, and here the condition 3 is checked. Now we assume that condition 3 is true, then statements in this particular true block is executed and the control comes out of the nested if else statement. Now coming to the last scenario, if the condition 1 is false, then control enters into outer else block. Here now assume that this condition 3 is also false, then these particular else block statements are executed and the control comes out of the nested if else statement. In this fashion, the programming statements are executed. Now in this video, we have discussed about nested if else statement. In the nested if else statement, we can have different syntaxes. Then how can we decide which type of syntax we have to use? Then it depends upon our application and it depends upon our programming logic and which syntax we have to follow. It depends purely on the programming logic and what type of application we are doing. This is about nested if else statements.